On a warm summer evening, the streets of Chicago buzzed with life. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. 19-year-old Maya Johnson walked briskly down the sidewalk, her mind racing with thoughts about her internship presentation due the next day. She was an ambitious young woman with dreams bigger than the city itself. Her grandmother often told her stories about resilience during tough times, and those tales fueled Maya's determination to become a civil rights attorney one day. Maya loved these evening walks. They gave her time to think, reflect, and recharge after long days filled with work and study. That night, she wore her favorite pair of sneakers, comfortable yet stylish, and carried a small backpack containing notes for her upcoming case, study. As she strolled past rows of brick buildings, she listened to music through her earbuds, letting the rhythm guide her steps. Everything seemed normal, peaceful even, but little did Maya know, this quiet evening would soon turn into something far more intense. As Maya rounded a corner onto a quieter street lined with trees, she noticed flashing lights reflecting off the windows of nearby houses. Red and blue, beams danced across the pavement ahead of her. At first, she thought nothing of it. Police cars were common sights in the neighborhood. Sometimes they sped by, sirens blaring, while other times they idled silently as officers spoke to residents. Maya assumed this was just another routine stop. However, when the lights grew brighter and closer, she realized with growing unease that the patrol car was slowing down right beside her. Her heart skipped a beat. Why were they stopping? She hadn't done anything wrong. Still, she paused mid-step, pulling out her earbuds to hear better. Before she could react further, the window of the police cruiser rolled down, and a gruff voice called out, "Hey, you! Stop right there." Maya froze, unsure of what to do. Should she keep walking or comply? Instinctively, she decided to stay put. Turning around slowly, she faced the officer who had addressed her. He was a tall man with sharp features, wearing the standard uniform of the Chicago Police Department. His nameplate read, Officer Carter. Beside him sat another officer, younger looking and quieter, whose eyes darted nervously between Carter and Maya. "Is everything okay?" Maya asked cautiously, trying to sound calm despite the knot forming in her stomach. Instead of answering her question, Officer Carter stepped out of the car, his boots thudding heavily against the asphalt. His presence loomed large, intimidating even. Without explaining why he'd stopped her, he instructed her to place her hands on the hood of the squad car. Confusion washed over Maya's face. What was happening? Had someone reported her? Was there some misunderstanding? Reluctantly, she obeyed, pressing her palms flat against the cool metal surface. Every movement felt surreal, like she was watching herself in a movie. Her mind raced, searching for answers. Did she accidentally break a rule she didn't know existed? Was this all because she happened to be walking alone at night? None of it made sense. Officer Carter circled around her, scrutinizing every detail, from her clothing to the contents of her backpack. "What's your deal?" he demanded, his tone harsh and accusatory. "Why are you out here so late?" "I live nearby," Maya replied honestly. "I'm just heading home." But her explanation only seemed to irritate him further. "Don't play dumb with me," he snapped. "You look suspicious. People have been complaining about troublemakers in this area lately." Maya blinked, taken aback by his words. Suspicious? Trouble? Those labels didn't fit her, not in the slightest. Yet here she stood, treated like a criminal simply for existing. Passers-by slowed their pace to observe the scene unfolding before them. Some shook their heads disapprovingly, while others pulled out their phones to record the interaction. Maya caught glimpses of their expressions, sympathy mixed with disbelief, but she couldn't focus on them. All her energy went toward staying, composed, refusing to let fear take over. Despite the tension, Maya reminded herself to breathe deeply. Reacting emotionally wouldn't help. It might even make things worse. So she bit her tongue, absorbing each insult and accusation silently. Each word stung, but she refused to crumble under the weight of injustice. Deep inside, she knew she hadn't done anything wrong, and holding on to that truth kept her grounded. The seconds stretched into minutes, each one feeling longer than the last. Maya wondered how much longer this ordeal would last. Would Officer Carter eventually realize his mistake and let her go? Or would he escalate the situation further? For now, all she could do was wait and hope that reason would prevail. Little did Maya know this encounter wasn't just about her. It was about power dynamics, biases, and the fragile line between authority and accountability. And though she couldn't see it yet, this moment would shape not only her future but also the lives of those involved in ways no one could predict. Officer Carter's voice cut through the night air like a knife, sharp and biting. His words weren't questions, they were accusations, each one landing with the weight of judgment. "You think you can just walk around here looking like you own the place?" he barked, pacing back and forth in front of Maya. The young woman stood frozen, her hands still pressed against the hood of the squad car. Her mind raced as she tried to process what was happening. Why was this man treating her like a suspect? What had she done to deserve this? Maya swallowed hard, her throat dry. She knew better than to argue or raise her voice. Instead, she kept her tone calm and steady, even though her heart was pounding like a drum. "Officer," she said softly but firmly, "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just heading home." But Officer Carter wasn't listening. His eyes narrowed as he leaned closer, his face inches from hers. "Don't give me that innocent act," he sneered. "People like you always have something to hide." The phrase "people like you" hit Maya like a slap. It wasn't the first time she'd heard those words, but they stung every time. She clenched her jaw, refusing to let him see how much his words hurt. Still, anger bubbled beneath the surface. Who did he think he was, judging her based on nothing more than the color of her skin? Passers-by continued to slow down, some stopping altogether to watch the scene unfold. A few muttered under their breath, shaking their heads at the injustice playing out before them. Others held up their phones, capturing videos of the encounter. Maya noticed their stares but tried not to focus on them. She didn't want to feel self-conscious or embarrassed. She hadn't done anything wrong, but it was hard not to feel exposed when everyone seemed to be watching. Officer Carter ignored the growing crowd. He reached for Maya's backpack, yanking it off her shoulder without asking permission. "What's in here?" he demanded, holding it up as if it contained contraband. Maya flinched but forced herself to stay composed. "Just my schoolwork," she replied. "Books and notes for an, internship project." "Internship, huh?" Carter scoffed, clearly skeptical. "What kind of internship?" "I'm interning with the ACLU," Maya answered, her voice unwavering despite the tension. "It's a civil rights organization." Carter paused for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, almost mockingly, he chuckled. "Oh, so you're one of those types, huh? Think you're too good for the rest of us?" Maya felt a surge of frustration. How could he twist her explanation into something negative? She wasn't trying to prove she was better than anyone. She was simply stating facts. But arguing wouldn't help. Instead, she took another deep breath and reminded herself to remain patient. This wasn't about winning an argument. It was about surviving the situation with her dignity intact. Meanwhile, Officer Ryan Hughes, Carter's partner, shifted uncomfortably in the passenger seat of the patrol car. Hughes was relatively new to the force, having joined only 6 months ago. He hadn't yet developed the hardened edge that many veteran officers carried, and witnessing Carter's behavior made him uneasy. He glanced between Maya and his partner, unsure of what to do. On one hand, he wanted to intervene, to tell Carter that this stop didn't seem justified, but on the other hand, he feared speaking out might make things worse. After all, challenging a senior officer wasn't exactly encouraged in their line of work. As Carter rummaged through Maya's backpack, pulling out notebooks and folders, Hughes couldn't help but notice the young woman's composure. Despite being treated unfairly, she remained calm and respectful. There was a quiet strength in the way she carried herself, a resilience that spoke volumes. Hughes found himself wondering, would he have handled the situation as gracefully if he were in her shoes? Back outside, Carter tossed the contents of the backpack onto the trunk of the squad car, scattering papers across its surface. "See anything suspicious here?" he asked sarcastically, turning to Hughes. Hughes hesitated before responding. Not really, he admitted cautiously. Looks like regular school stuff. Carter shot him a glare, irritated by the lack of support. You don't know what you're talking about, he snapped. Then, turning back to Maya, he added, Maybe we should check your pockets too. You never know what you might find. Maya stiffened at the suggestion. I don't have anything illegal on me, she said firmly. If you want to search me, you'll need probable cause, or a warrant. Her knowledge of her rights caught Carter off guard. For a split second, his confidence wavered, but then he recovered, masking his surprise with renewed aggression. Don't get smart with me, he growled. I can arrest you right now if I want to. The threat hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Maya's stomach churned, but she refused to back down. She looked him straight in the eye, her gaze steady. Go ahead, she said quietly. But you'll regret it when my lawyer shows up. For a moment there was silence. Even the bystanders seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see how Carter would respond. Would he follow through on his threat? Or would he realize he was crossing a line? Officer Hughes finally decided to step in. Leaning out of the car window, he called out, Hey, maybe we should just let her go. We've already searched her bag and there's nothing here. Carter shot him another glare, but this time he didn't dismiss the comment outright. Instead, he studied Maya carefully, as if trying to gauge whether she truly meant what she'd said about calling a lawyer. The young woman stood tall, her posture unwavering. There was no fear in her eyes, only determination. Reluctantly, Carter stepped back, putting some distance between himself and Maya. He didn't apologize or admit fault. Instead, he muttered something under his breath and gestured for her to gather her belongings. Get out of here, he grumbled, and don't let me catch you wandering around late at night again. Maya didn't respond. She quickly scooped up her papers and stuffed them back into her backpack, her hands trembling slightly despite her best efforts to appear unaffected. As she slung the bag over her shoulder, she gave Carter one last glance, a look that conveyed both defiance and disappointment. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving the officers and the crowd behind. The walk home felt longer than usual. Each step weighed heavily on Maya, not because of physical exhaustion, but because of the emotional toll the encounter had taken. She replayed the events in her mind, analyzing every detail. Was there something she could have done differently? Could she have avoided the confrontation altogether? No matter how hard she thought about it, she couldn't shake the feeling that none of this was her fault. She hadn't provoked the officers or given them any reason to treat her the way they did. And yet, here she was, carrying the burden of their prejudice. When Maya finally reached her apartment building, she paused outside the door, taking a moment to compose herself. She didn't want to bring the anger and frustration inside with her. Her grandmother, who lived with her, deserved peace after a long day. So Maya took a deep breath, wiped away a stray tear, and plastered a smile on her face before stepping inside. Little did she know this wasn't the end of the story. The incident had left an impression, not just on her, but on the people who witnessed it, recorded it, and later shared it online. In the days to come, Maya's name would become synonymous with courage and resilience, sparking conversations about justice, equality, and accountability. But for now, all she wanted was to sit quietly in her room, reflect on what had happened, and remind herself that she was stronger than anyone who tried to bring her down. The tension in the air was palpable as Officer Carter continued his verbal assault. Each word he hurled at Maya felt like a calculated strike, designed to intimidate and demean. You think you're untouchable, don't you? He sneered, pacing back and forth in front of her. Walking around here like you're above the law. Maya clenched her fists tightly by her sides, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted so badly to defend herself, to shout back that she wasn't doing anything illegal or harmful. But deep down, she knew better than to escalate the situation. Every instinct told her that responding with anger would only give Carter more ammunition to use against her. So instead, she stood still, forcing herself to breathe deeply and maintain control. "You've got an attitude problem," Carter continued, his voice rising with each passing second. "People like you always do. Always thinking you're smarter than everyone else." The phrase "people like you" echoed in Maya's mind, heavy with prejudice. It wasn't just an insult. It was a label, one meant to strip away her individuality and reduce her to a stereotype. Maya bit her lip hard enough to taste the faint tang of blood, but she refused to let him see how much his words hurt. Her grandmother had taught her long ago that strength wasn't about fighting back. Sometimes, it was about enduring with grace. "Officer." Ryan Hughes shifted uncomfortably in his seat again, his discomfort growing with every harsh comment from his partner. He glanced toward Maya, noticing the way her shoulders squared despite the obvious strain she must have been feeling. There was something admirable about her resilience, something that made Hughes question whether he'd chosen the right career path. Was this really what policing was supposed to look like? Humiliating innocent people for no reason other than their appearance? Carter's tone grew even sharper as he leaned in closer to Maya, his face inches from hers. "If I wanted to, I could slap cuffs on you right now," he threatened, his breath hot against her cheek. "And there wouldn't be a damn thing you could do about it." Maya's heart skipped a beat. The thought of being arrested, of having her freedom taken away over nothing, sent a wave of panic coursing through her veins. But outwardly, she remained calm. She reminded herself that fear wouldn't help her here. Instead, she focused on the facts. She hadn't committed any crime, and Carter's threats were empty unless he could justify them legally. "And then what?" Maya asked softly, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "What charges would you bring? What evidence do you have?" Her question caught Carter off guard. For a brief moment, his confidence faltered, replaced by uncertainty. But he quickly masked it with renewed aggression. "Don't test me," he snapped. "I can make something stick if I want to." The crowd of bystanders murmured among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief while others whispered encouragement to Maya. One woman called out, "Leave her alone. She hasn't done anything wrong." Another man added, "This is ridiculous. Let her go." But Carter ignored them all, focusing solely on Maya. His eyes narrowed as he studied her face, searching for any sign of weakness. To his frustration, he found none. If anything, she seemed more composed than ever, standing tall and meeting his gaze without flinching. Hughes couldn't take it anymore. Leaning out of the car window once again, he spoke up hesitantly. "Maybe we should just let her go," he suggested, his voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. "We've already searched her stuff and there's nothing suspicious." Carter glared at him, clearly irritated by the interruption. "Stay out of this," he growled. "You don't know what you're talking about." But Hughes wasn't willing to stay silent this time. "Look," he said, his tone firmer now. "We're drawing too much attention. People are filming us. If this blows up online..." He didn't need to finish his sentence. Carter understood the implication. Social media had become a powerful tool for holding law enforcement accountable, and both officers knew that incidents like this could easily spiral out of control if they weren't careful. Carter hesitated, his jaw tightening as he weighed the risks. For Maya, the exchange between the two officers provided a small sense of relief. Though Carter showed no signs of backing down completely, the fact that Hughes was questioning his behavior gave her hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone in uniform still cared about fairness and justice. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Carter stepped back slightly, putting some distance between himself and Maya. He didn't apologize, or admit wrongdoing. He wasn't capable of that, but he did lower his voice. "Fine," he muttered grudgingly. "Take your things and get out of here. But remember this, I'm watching you." Maya didn't respond. She simply bent down to gather her scattered belongings, stuffing papers and notebooks back into her backpack as quickly as possible. Her hands trembled slightly, betraying the emotion she was trying so hard to suppress. As she slung the bag over her shoulder, she gave Carter one final glance, a look that conveyed both defiance and disappointment. Then, without another word, She turned and walked away, leaving the officers and the growing crowd behind. The walk home felt endless. Each step carried the weight of exhaustion, not physical, but emotional. Maya replayed the encounter in her mind, analyzing every detail. Was there something she could have done differently? Could she have avoided the confrontation altogether? No matter how hard she thought about it, she couldn't shake the feeling that none of this was her fault. She hadn't provoked the officers or given them any reason to treat her the way they did. And yet, here she was, carrying the burden of their prejudice. As Maya approached her apartment building, she paused outside the door, taking a moment to compose herself. She didn't want to bring the anger and frustration inside with her. Her grandmother, who lived with her, deserved peace after a long day. So Maya took a deep breath, wiped away a stray tear, and plastered a smile on her face before stepping inside. Little did she know this wasn't the end of the story. The incident had left an impression, not just on her, but on the people who witnessed it, recorded it, and later shared it online. In the days to come, Maya's name would become synonymous with courage and resilience, sparking conversations about justice, equality, and accountability. But for now, all she wanted was to sit quietly in her room, reflect on what had happened, and remind herself that she was stronger than anyone who tried to bring her down. That night, as Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she replayed the events once more. Despite the pain and humiliation, she realized something important. She hadn't let Carter break her spirit. She had stood her ground, refusing to let his cruelty define her. And though the road ahead might be difficult, she vowed to turn this experience into fuel for change, to fight for a world where no one else would have to endure what she had gone through that evening. Maya's walk home was quiet but far from peaceful. Her mind buzzed with thoughts, replaying every word and action from the encounter with Officer Carter. Though she had managed to keep her composure during the ordeal, the weight of it all began sinking in as she turned the corner onto her street. The anger, frustration, and humiliation she'd suppressed earlier now bubbled to the surface. She felt a mix of emotions: sadness for being treated unfairly, pride for standing her ground, and determination to ensure something like this never happened again. When Maya finally reached her apartment building, she paused outside the door, taking a moment to steady herself. She didn't want her grandmother, Evelyn Johnson, to see how shaken she was. Evelyn was a woman of immense strength and wisdom, someone who had lived through decades of challenges and emerged stronger each time. Maya admired her deeply and didn't want to burden her with this latest incident. Still, there was no hiding the fact that something was wrong. "Maya, is that you?" Evelyn's voice called out as soon as Maya stepped inside. The older woman was sitting in her favorite armchair by the window, knitting needles clicking rhythmically in her hands. Her sharp eyes immediately noticed the tension in Maya's posture and the faint redness around her eyes. "Yes, Grandma," Maya replied, forcing a smile. "It's me." Evelyn set her knitting aside and patted the couch beside her. "Come, sit down, child. You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. What's troubling you?" Maya hesitated for a moment, unsure of where to begin. But Evelyn had always been her confidant, the one person she could trust completely, so slowly and haltingly at first, Maya recounted the events of the evening. The unjust stop, the insults, the threats, and the way the officers had treated her like a criminal without cause. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away, determined not to cry. Evelyn listened intently, her expression growing darker with each detail. When Maya finished, the room fell silent, except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Evelyn reached over and took Maya's hand in hers, squeezing it gently. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that, sweetheart," Evelyn said softly. Her voice was calm, but there was a fire burning behind her eyes, a fire born of years of fighting against injustice. "But let me tell you something. They can try to break your spirit, but they will never succeed. Not if you don't let them." Maya nodded, drawing comfort from her grandmother's words. "I know, Grandma, I don't understand why people treat others this way. Why do they judge me before even knowing who I am? Evelyn sighed, her gaze drifting toward the window. It's fear, Maya. Fear of what they don't understand. Fear of change. People cling to their biases because it makes them feel safe, even when those biases are wrong. But remember this: ignorance doesn't define you. Only your actions define you. Her words resonated deeply with Maya, sparking a flicker of resolve within her. This wasn't just about her. It was about standing up for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. It was about using her voice to demand better, to push for a world where no one had to endure what she had experienced that night. The next morning, Maya woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. She decided to document everything that had happened, writing down every detail while it was still fresh in her mind. She included descriptions of the officers, their names, which she remembered from their badges, and the exact location of the incident. She also made note of the bystanders who had witnessed the event and even recorded videos of it. These details might prove important later if she decided to file a formal complaint or take things further. As she worked on her notes, Maya received a text message from her mentor, Judge Evelyn Thompson. Judge Thompson was a towering figure in the legal community, known for her fierce advocacy for civil rights and her commitment to holding law enforcement accountable. Maya had interned under her guidance for several months, learning invaluable lessons about justice and perseverance. The text read, "Heard about last night. Are you okay? Call me when you're ready to talk." Maya stared at the screen, feeling a surge of gratitude. Word traveled fast, especially in circles connected to social justice. Someone must have shared the video footage online, and it had already reached Judge Thompson. Taking a deep breath, Maya dialed her mentor's number. "Hello, Maya," Judge Thompson answered warmly, but with an edge of concern. "Tell me what happened." Maya recounted the story once more, this time focusing on the specifics rather than her emotions. She explained how Officer Carter had singled her out, insulted her and threatened her, all without probable cause. She mentioned how his demeanor changed when she revealed her connection to the ACLU and her internship. Judge Thompson listened carefully, occasionally interjecting with questions. When Maya finished, the judge remained silent for a moment before speaking. "This isn't just about you, Maya," she said firmly. "This is about systemic issues that need to be addressed. Officers like Carter think they can act with impunity because they haven't faced consequences before. But we can change that. We can hold them accountable, not just for your sake, but for everyone else who has suffered in silence." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. Accountability. That was exactly what she wanted. "What should I do?" she asked. "For starters," Judge Thompson replied, "file a formal complaint with Internal Affairs. Document everything meticulously, including any evidence from witnesses or recordings. Then consider sharing your story publicly. Use your platform to shine a light on these injustices. People need to hear voices like yours." The idea of going public terrified Maya. She wasn't used to being in the spotlight, and the thought of facing backlash scared her. But she also knew that staying silent wouldn't solve anything. If she wanted real change, she had to speak up, even if it meant putting herself out there. Later that day, Maya sat at her laptop drafting her complaint. She included every detail she could remember, attaching screenshots of the viral video and contact information for potential witnesses. As she typed, she couldn't help but think about Officer Carter's reaction when she mentioned working with Judge Thompson. His sudden shift in behavior had been telling. It confirmed what she suspected all along. Power dynamics often dictated how people were treated, regardless of right or wrong. By the time she submitted her complaint, Maya felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. Relief because she was taking action, refusing to let the incident slide unnoticed. Apprehension because she knew the road ahead would be challenging. There would be skeptics, critics, and perhaps even attempts to discredit her, but none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was standing up for what was right. That evening, as Maya scrolled through social media, she saw countless comments and shares related to her story. Some praised her courage, calling her a role model for young activists. Others expressed outrage at the officer's behavior, demanding immediate consequences. For the first time since the incident, Maya allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could lead to meaningful change. Before heading to bed, Maya opened her journal and wrote a single sentence. Change starts with courage, and today, I found mine. She closed the book and placed it on her nightstand, feeling a newfound sense of clarity. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready to face them head-on. The days following Maya's encounter with Officer Carter felt like a whirlwind. Her complaint to Internal Affairs had been submitted, and she'd begun sharing her story online, carefully crafting posts that balanced raw honesty with calls for systemic reform. The response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life reached out, some offering support, others sharing their own experiences of injustice. It seemed as though Maya's voice had struck a chord, resonating deeply with those who had long felt unheard. But the attention wasn't entirely positive. Alongside messages of encouragement came waves of criticism and skepticism. Some accused her of exaggerating the incident or seeking fame. Others dismissed her claims altogether, insisting that officers have tough jobs and shouldn't be scrutinized for doing what they believe is necessary. Maya read these comments reluctantly, feeling the sting of each one. Yet she reminded herself why she had chosen to speak up in the first place, not for validation, but for justice. Meanwhile, Officer Carter found himself at the center of an escalating controversy. News outlets picked up the story, fueled by the viral video footage captured by bystanders. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like Now Justice for Maya and Now Accountability Now, amplifying the demand for answers. Carter's superiors called him into a meeting where he was grilled about the incident. His usual bravado faltered under the pressure. His colleagues' disapproving glances and pointed questions left him feeling cornered. Officer Ryan Hughes, on the other hand, faced a different kind of scrutiny. While many praised him for attempting to intervene during the stop, others questioned why he hadn't done more to prevent Carter's behavior. Hughes wrestled with guilt, replaying the scene in his mind over and over again. He knew he could have spoken up sooner, could have insisted on letting Maya go without further confrontation. But fear of retaliation and the ingrained culture of compliance within the department had kept him silent. Now, seeing the public outcry, he realized how much harm silence could cause. One evening, Hughes decided to visit the neighborhood where the incident had occurred. He parked his car a few blocks away and walked slowly down the street, observing the community he was supposed to serve. Streetlights cast soft pools of light onto the pavement, illuminating children playing basketball and families chatting on porches. For the first time in months, Hughes truly saw the people around him, not as potential threats or statistics, but as human beings deserving of respect and protection. As he approached the exact spot where Maya had been stopped, Hughes noticed a group of teenagers gathered near a bench. They glanced at him warily, their body language tense. One boy muttered something under his breath, while another turned away entirely. Hughes felt a pang of shame. He understood now why trust between law enforcement and marginalized communities was so fragile. It wasn't just about individual actions. It was about patterns of mistreatment that stretched back generations. Determined to make amends, Hughes returned to the station the next day and requested a transfer to the community policing unit. This division focused on building relationships with residents, fostering dialogue, and addressing concerns collaboratively rather than through force. Though some of his colleagues mocked his decision, calling him naive or weak, Hughes didn't care. He wanted to prove that change was possible, even if it started small. Back at her apartment, Maya continued navigating the aftermath of going public. Journalists bombarded her with interview requests, eager to hear her perspective firsthand. At first, she declined most of them, unsure if she was ready to face the cameras. But after consulting with Judge Thompson, she agreed to sit down with one trusted reporter known for covering civil rights issues fairly. The interview took place in a quiet park, surrounded by trees and birdsong, providing a serene backdrop for such a heavy topic. When asked how she felt about the widespread attention her story had received, Maya paused thoughtfully before responding. "It's bittersweet," she admitted. "On one hand, I'm grateful that people are listening and standing with me. On the other hand, this shouldn't be extraordinary. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own skin, to walk home without fear of being targeted because of who they are." Her words resonated deeply, striking a nerve with viewers across the country. Clips from the interview aired on national news programs, sparking discussions about racial profiling, police accountability, and the urgent need for reform. Activists used Maya's story as a rallying cry, organizing protests and town hall meetings to push for policy changes. Lawmakers cited her case when proposing new legislation aimed at increasing transparency and oversight within law enforcement agencies. Despite the progress, Maya couldn't ignore the toll the spotlight was taking on her mental health. Every comment, every article, every debate felt personal, as though her identity had become synonymous with the fight itself. She confided in her grandmother, Evelyn, who listened patiently before offering sage advice. "You're carrying a lot right now, sweetheart," Evelyn said gently. "And it's okay to step back when you need to. Remember, your worth isn't tied to this moment. You're still the same brilliant, compassionate young woman you've always been. Don't lose sight of that." Evelyn's words grounded Maya, reminding her to prioritize self-care amidst the chaos. She began setting boundaries, limiting her social media use and dedicating time each day to activities that brought her joy, reading novels, practicing yoga, and cooking meals with her grandmother. These small rituals helped her recharge, giving her the strength to continue advocating for change without losing herself in the process. Around the same time, Officer Carter received a summons to appear before a disciplinary review board. The law hearing was scheduled for the following week, and rumors swirled about what might happen. Would he face suspension, termination, or would the system protect him, brushing the incident aside as an isolated mistake? Carter spent sleepless nights preparing for the hearing, rehearsing explanations and excuses. He tried convincing himself that he hadn't done anything particularly egregious, that he was simply enforcing the law as he saw fit. Yet, deep down, he couldn't shake the image of Maya standing tall despite his cruelty. Her composure haunted him, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about his biases and behavior. On the morning of the hearing, Carter arrived early, pacing nervously outside the conference room. Inside, representatives from Internal Affairs, legal advisors, and civilian oversight members awaited his testimony. As he took his seat, he noticed Maya sitting across the table, flanked by Judge Thompson and a team of attorneys. Their presence unnerved him, but he forced himself to maintain a stoic expression. The proceedings began with a summary of the incident, followed by testimonies from witnesses and analysis of the video evidence. When it was Carter's turn to speak, his voice trembled slightly as he recounted his version of events. He admitted to stopping Maya based on vague suspicions but denied any malicious intent. "I was just doing my job," he insisted, though his tone lacked conviction. Judge Thompson leaned forward, her piercing gaze locking onto Carter's. "Your job is to protect and serve," she said firmly. "Not to intimidate or humiliate. What you did that night was not only unprofessional but also illegal, and it has consequences." Her words hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. Carter looked down at his hands, unable to meet anyone's eyes. For the first time, he realized the gravity of his actions and the ripple effects they had caused. After hours of deliberation, the review board announced its decision. Carter would retain his position but undergo mandatory sensitivity training and counseling. Additionally, he would be placed on probationary status for 6 months, during which any further misconduct would result in immediate termination. While some viewed the outcome as lenient, others saw it as a step toward accountability, a chance for Carter to reflect and grow. As Maya left the hearing, reporters swarmed her, eager for her reaction. She offered a simple statement. "This isn't about revenge or punishment, it's about learning and moving forward. I hope today marks the beginning of meaningful change for everyone involved." Though the battle was far from over, Maya allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. She had stood firm, using her voice to challenge injustice and inspire others to do the same. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, she knew one thing for sure: courage, resilience, and unity could move mountains.